The scandal over the Latin Mass is growing more disturbing by the day, and the silence surrounding it has only made things feel even darker. Right now, the Vatican seems wrapped in a strange hush, even as new secrets and shocking events keep piling up. For many Catholics, the past few months have felt like watching a slow-moving train wreck. There have been secret documents leaked to the public, strange and sudden disappearances of entire websites, vague answers from officials, and even rumors about a book that might spill even more secrets. Each new detail adds to the feeling that something is seriously wrong and that we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. It all began when new restrictions were placed on the Latin or Tridentine Mass, the traditional form of Catholic worship that goes back centuries. The rule was handed down through the motu proprio called Traditionis Custodes, which made it much harder for priests to celebrate the Old Mass. The Vatican said it was responding to divisions in the Church, and that a survey of bishops around the world had shown that many believed the traditional Mass was causing problems. For months, this was the official story. The same words were repeated again and again. There are divisions, there are problems, and the Church needs unity. That was the line from Rome. But everything changed when a brave journalist, Diane Montagna, published an internal Vatican document that she received from an anonymous source. This secret paper told a completely different story. According to the leaked document, most bishops were actually not asking for the Old Mass to be stopped. In fact, many of them thought the traditional liturgy was valuable, and that the compromise created by Pope Benedict XVI, who allowed both forms of Mass to exist side by side, was fair and just. The document said there was no crisis. There was no sign of widespread demand to end the Latin Mass. The official story, repeated by church leaders, now started to look shaky. When this truth came out, there was a real sense of shock and embarrassment within the Vatican. At a press conference, journalists demanded answers from the Vatican's spokesman, Matteo Bruni. But Bruni looked nervous. He said the documents were partial and incomplete, but he couldn't point to any part that was actually false or misleading. People were left wondering if the bishops didn't want to ban the Old Mass. Why did the Vatican say they did? And why was it so hard for the spokesman to simply show which parts were supposedly wrong? As if this wasn't enough, another twist arrived almost at the same time. A publishing house called Fide Cultura announced that it was preparing a new book titled The Liturgy is Not a Spectacle. This book would include the leaked documents and even more previously unseen material, promising to show that the traditional Latin Mass was never the problem the Vatican said it was. The timing of the book's announcement was suspicious, as it came just as the controversy was exploding. Many people started to wonder if powerful forces were working behind the scenes to control which stories were allowed to reach the public. Was it just a coincidence, or were efforts being made to silence anyone defending the traditional Mass? Then came another shock. On July 14th, something happened that left even more people confused and worried. A popular Italian blog called Mess in Latino, a long-standing supporter of the Latin Mass, was suddenly deleted from Google. The blog had been active since 2007, becoming a place where Catholics could find news, thoughtful opinions, and real discussions about the Tridentine liturgy. The site was well known and respected, especially by those who felt pushed aside by recent changes in the Church. Just in June, the blog had seen more than 1 million visits, showing that interest in the Old Mass was growing, not shrinking. But now, overnight, it was gone. No warning, no explanation. Anyone who tried to visit the site saw only a cold message saying it had been deleted and was no longer available everywhere, in every country. People could not believe it. Some wondered if it was connected to the blog's open support of the Latin Mass, or because the blog had been promoting the new book, The Liturgy is Not a Spectacle. The sudden and total removal sent a chill through the community. It felt like someone, somewhere, wanted to erase the traditional Mass from public view. Other Catholic blogs and websites quickly rallied in support. They published statements of solidarity, calling the deletion unjust and incomprehensible. The director of the blog, Luigi Castellini, said on social media that he would fight to restore the site and even take legal action against Google. But the damage was already done. For many, it felt like an invisible hand was quietly working to silence anyone who questioned the Vatican's approach to the traditional Mass. The Vatican, meanwhile, kept quiet. After the first press conference where the spokesman fumbled through answers, no real clarification was offered. When journalists asked which parts of the leaked documents were supposedly incomplete or wrong, they got nothing but silence. Even when asked to show which other documents were used to justify the crackdown on the Latin Mass, the Vatican only repeated the same old words. The opinions of the bishops and the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith were taken into account, but the full truth was never shared, and the main claims in the leaked documents were never actually disproven as more questions built up. The silence became more troubling. For months, the only answers were vague statements and repeated lines from official documents. People began to wonder if the Church's leaders were more interested in managing a problem than shepherding their people. Instead of open, honest dialogue, there were administrative moves, sudden removals, and unexplained decisions. It started to look less like the work of spiritual leaders, and more like the actions of bureaucrats hiding from the light. Cardinals who had spoken out in defense of the Latin Mass, men like Cardinal Burke, Cardinal Muller, and Bishop Schneider, did not wait for all this drama to raise their voices. They had already called on the Pope to protect tradition and to listen to the faithful. Their warnings now sounded even more urgent. They reminded everyone that a true shepherd does not run from questions or silence his sheep. He listens, protects, and answers. In the wake of these events, many Catholics felt an even deeper pain and confusion. Their trust in the Church was being tested in ways they had never imagined. Meanwhile, Pope Leo XIV retreated to Castel Gandolfo, the traditional papal summer residence, for a period of rest. Some hoped this break would become a time of reflection and real listening. But among ordinary Catholics, the feeling was different. Many worried that the silence would just go on, and that the real problems would never be addressed. For some, it began to seem like the Vatican was being run more like a political organization than a spiritual family. It's hard not to notice the pattern. First came the restrictions, then the leaked documents, the failed press conference, this strange disappearance of an important blog, and the announcement of a book that might tell the whole truth. All of these things happened in rapid succession. The events feel connected, even if no one can say for sure who is behind them. Every new silence, every missing answer, only adds to the sense that something is being covered up. Each step makes the wound deeper for those who love the traditional Mass and want nothing more than to worship God in the way their ancestors did for centuries. As the days pass, the silence from the top only makes things worse. Catholics who once felt secure in their faith are now left with doubts and questions. Is the Vatican afraid of the truth coming out? Is there really a crisis? Or is something else going on behind the scenes? Why is it so hard to get a straight answer? The lack of open conversation has caused the pain and frustration to grow. Faithful Catholics feel abandoned, left to guess what is happening in the Church they love. For decades, the Latin Mass was a source of unity and beauty in the Catholic world. Even those who preferred the newer form of the liturgy could see its importance. The old Mass was a living link to the faith of the saints and the prayers of generations past. It was never just about words or rituals, it was about the soul of the Church, the deep roots of tradition, and the sense of sacredness that touched so many hearts. Now all of that feels at risk. The fight over the Latin Mass has become more than a debate about worship. It has become a test of honesty, a measure of how much the Church's leaders are willing to listen to their people, and a sign of whether tradition will be respected or erased. The faithful are not asking for power or privilege, they only want the right to worship in the way that speaks to their hearts and connects them to the faith of their ancestors. Through all of this, one question remains. When will the Pope finally speak? When will there be real answers, not just silence or vague statements? When will the Church show that it values truth and tradition over politics and control? The faithful are waiting, and the world is watching. As the story grows more tangled, the need for light and clarity becomes greater with each passing day. Those who defend the Latin Mass are not going away. Even as websites disappear, books are delayed, and documents are hidden, their voices grow stronger. The sense of injustice only makes them more determined. Across the world, in big cities and small towns, in parish halls and family homes, people are praying, discussing, and standing together for the right to keep the old liturgy alive. For them, this is not just a fight over a ritual.